Okay. Hi, everyone. Good morning. My name is Amita Nagaraja. Excited to be with all of you today. Thanks so much for joining us to talk about developing effective partnerships. It's great to see all of you. We might have a few others joining over the next few minutes, but I think we'll go ahead and get started. Really excited to be with all of you today. I think that this has always been a really important topic, but, over the past year particularly, I think so many of us have really leaned on each other, leaned on our communities, leaned on sort of partnerships and support networks more than ever. So I'm excited to talk about this with you all, but we are going to have an opportunity actually at the end of the session to hear from all of you also, and share some of the best practices that you probably, have from your own experiences, with partnerships. So we will jump in. So welcome. I'll start with, we can go to the next slide, Evan. Start with just a brief introduction, a little bit of background on me. My name is Amita Nagaraja, and my background is primarily in CSR, corporate social responsibility, and corporate philanthropy. I've been in the private sector for a number of years in New York City with financial services companies, working for foundations and corporate responsibility teams, managing partnerships and employee programs, doing a lot of volunteerism, a lot of grant making, a lot of strategic partnerships. And for the past close to 5 years, I've been consulting to nonprofits, to corporates and corporate foundations, as well as private foundations. And I've had the pleasure of doing some work with NYC Service, so I may have come across some of you before, or we may have crossed paths before. Yeah, developing partnerships has really been one of my favorite things, over the course of my career. It's a real opportunity to sort of learn more about yourself as an organization, as a team, and really just have a greater impact in terms of what you're doing. That's really the goal often with partnerships. So it can be really exciting, and I'm really excited to chat with you about it here today. So how do we define a partnership? There's probably, a number of different definitions there. We'll start with this one, a relationship between individuals or groups that's characterized by mutual cooperation and responsibility, as for the achievement of a specified goal. Partnerships can take many different forms. It can be between individuals, between organizations, and it absolutely can be, within the same sector or across sectors. So we'll talk a little bit about sort of, what that could look like when you're looking for a cross-sector partnership, potentially a funder or a corporation, or if you're looking at partnerships in your own community or with organizations that tackle similar issue areas. So there's a number of different types of partnerships, and the sort of model that we'll be talking about today should really be relevant across the board, to any type of partnership that you're sort of considering or embarking on. So what are some of the benefits to partnership? I'm not going to pretend that this is, oh, sorry. Okay, there's a question in the chat that I'm just noticing. Evan, do we have the ability to turn the live transcription on?
Let me look into it really quick.
Okay, so we'll try to slow it down a notch, and then Evan's going to look into whether we can do closed captioning for this training as well. So some of the benefits of partnership, and this is definitely not an exhaustive list, are that different partners bring unique resources and capabilities to the table. So it's a great way to complement your own strengths and resources that your organization has. Another benefit is that the more stakeholder groups that you have create increased opportunities for visibility, for credibility, for communications, for storytelling. Your network is sort of this circle. The minute you partner with another organization, another individual, another stakeholder, you increase that circle, you increase sort of the network and the people that are listening to, your story. So it's a real opportunity to broaden your message. Collaboration often can also lead to faster and more effective solutions. We're all familiar with sort of the cliche of two heads are better than one. Ideally, collaboration and partnership leads to, more thinking, more ideas, more hands, more people that can roll up their sleeves and actually help get, meet your goals. So, hopefully that's what we're aiming for too. And then working with trusted members of a community and, or trusted members of the partnership that you're in really helps build sort of trust and relationships that can have longer term, broader impact. A partnership could start out, really, really tactical, focused on one specific thing. But, deep, strong partnerships also have ripple effects for, in a number of different areas, sort of, down the line, in the future. Strong partnerships can sort of lead to unknown benefits, that kind of ripple out based on those. So there's a lot of potential benefits there. So we're going to talk through a partnership model today. There's a number of different ways to sort of approach partnerships, think about them. But this model is going to focus on a few different sort of key steps. I think, most models are probably similar in that it kind of walks you through, the different things you want to think about and consider as you're embarking on a partnership. So if we go to the next slide, this model is going to focus on 6 different steps. We're going to start with assess, and actually we can go to the next slide and I'll talk it through, Evan. We're going to start with assessing, where we're going to assess what we have to offer and what we want to achieve out of a partnership. Really important to understand that. We're going to talk about how we align. We align sort of our goals and priorities, both internally and externally, to understand kind of who might be a potential fit for us. Cultivating partnerships. How do we actually identify who we want to be partners with and how do we approach them? Once we embark on a partnership, how do we steward that partnership? How do we really build it and maintain it to make sure that it's going to be successful? How do we set it up for success? How do we continue to review partnerships? How do we make sure that we're looking at them and we're evaluating them on a regular basis? And then, an important step in the process, refining, sort of using, the review process to actually make it better whenever we can. So this is the model that we're going to be going through. So the first step of really sort of any process or any, in this case, partnerships, but, the first step to a lot of processes are kind of really assessing what the current situation is. What do we have to offer? What do we want to achieve out of this? Without really understanding what our goals are of a partnership, it's hard to know if we're going to be embarking on something that's going to be effective. So we want to start by really assessing our motivations for partnership and our organizational strengths. What do we have to bring to the table? What are we bringing to a partnership? So we want to think about what are our organization's key short and long-term goals? Ultimately, what does our organization focus on and what are we really trying to accomplish, both in the short term and in the long term? So perhaps last year, when we were all sort of hit with, the COVID crisis, our short-term goals may have been, wildly different from what we thought they were going to be. A lot of organizations I know pivoted and really started doing, much more sort of urgent services in their communities, in their neighborhood, because of just the need that was springing up around them. So really trying to understand, of course, our overall organizational mission and long-term goals, but also thinking short-term, what are the things we're focusing on and trying to accomplish right now? Also really important to think about what's working well within our own organization and what are we particularly proud of. This is this is a fun part of the process, thinking about what we're doing really well. What are our assets? What do we bring to the table? New York City is a tough market. I think any nonprofit that's sort of surviving and thriving here is obviously doing something right. So we want to really take stock of that and take stock of what we're doing well, what's working, and what we can really build on in terms of a partnership. You also want to think about which of your resources and strengths could be valuable to the community or to a potential partner. What's unique about your organization? What's unique about the way you do things? And how could that be, an added benefit to a potential partner? How could that create some shared value? And then we want to think about what are some gaps and opportunities that we might want to address through a partnership. What are the things that we really want to get out of a partnership? Ultimately, what are we looking to achieve through potential partnerships? Are there certain holes in terms of our reach, in terms of our services, in terms of our knowledge that we're really trying to fill in by creating partnerships or creating a specific partnership? What is it that we're sort of struggling with that we want to be able to address or do better with the help of a partner? Is it that, we just don't have, enough hands to sort of do all the work that we're doing? And we'd like to partner with, an organization that's going to just bring more capacity and more bandwidth to help us do what we need to do. Or is there a new need that's popped up in our neighborhood that we don't have any experience with? And we want to partner with an organization that has deep knowledge in that space so we can really understand, a certain issue or a certain topic better to be able to better address sort of our community. So thinking really about what the gaps and opportunities are that you could really, leverage sort of a partnership to help address. So after really understanding kind of what your assets are and what your motivations are for sort of, embarking on a partnership, the next step is to really align, really thinking about, what does that mean for sort of thinking about partnerships? What are your sort of goals and priorities internally, which you've understood, but now how do they relate to sort of externally what you want to accomplish? So, most important to start with is really doing your homework. Once you've identified, when we did some of that asset mapping and we've identified what some of those gaps and opportunities are and what we're trying to fill in, when looking for a partnership, thinking about who has that knowledge that can help fill that gap. Who has sort of those capacities that can help address kind of the gap that we have? Who has the reach that we're looking for? Really thinking about what that looks like. So when you're aligning, you're thinking about really aligning what your goals are for partnership with potential partners that could sort of really bring shared value. So what do you bring to the table? What are you looking to get out of a partnership? And what do potential partners bring to the table that could really sort of match and line up with what you're looking for? So some of the things to think about when you're sort of in this phase is thinking about sort of the community landscape. What's happening around you? Are there skills and talents in your own community that align with your organization's goals? Are there community leaders and affected or elected officials, that your organization works with or potentially would like to work with? Are there local institutions, cultural institutions, community institutions that might have resources that might help to address some of those gaps that you mentioned? Might they have space that they could lend to you? Or maybe they have, a really great distribution list and, a certain, pocket of the community that you're not tapped into that they might be able to introduce you to. What are the different sort of, institutions and what kinds of resources do they bring to the table? And what are some of the reputable grassroots and local groups that are most active in your neighborhood? And again, how might you sort of line up with them? The things that you're looking to get and the things that you bring to the table and might be able to help them with. So you always want to think about, how do we meet our organizational needs and how can we help meet a partner's organizational needs? So thinking through a little bit about what might a potential partner want. So what are some of the things when you're thinking about a potential partner that they might be looking for? And again, this could be a community partner, it could be a nonprofit that, addresses the same issues that you do or a complementary issue. It could be a funder or a corporate partner, but these are some of the things that sometimes partners, are looking for. They're definitely looking for shared value, something that is a win-win and really benefits kind of, both parties. Something that's ideally high impact, that's really creating, impact and helping you sort of achieve your goals and your mission. Potentially a partner could be looking for visibility, greater reach in terms of their networks, in terms of their audiences, in terms of the work that they do. Yes, I'm just getting a quick question, and I forgot to mention earlier that yes, the session is going to be recorded and everybody will be getting a PDF of the presentation. So you don't worry about having to sort of scramble and take notes. Everybody will be getting a copy of the presentation. Credibility, certainly, when you're looking for a potential partner, you want a partner that has that credibility, either in a certain knowledge area, sort of credibility in terms of their networks in the community. We might be looking for something that's cost efficient, certainly not that's going to create additional cost for either of the partners, but maybe there are, partnerships that make sense because we're sharing resources. And, I'm sharing something with your organization that you need, and you're sharing something with my organization that I need, which creates cost efficiencies. If it's a funder or a potential corporate partner that you're looking at, they want value for sort of, the dollars that they're investing in a potential partnership. You want to be able to demonstrate that value. You want something that's manageable. A really good partnership is absolutely going to take work, but you want something that feels realistic and feasible, not something that's so high maintenance that it's creating, so much additional work that, it's sort of overshadowing the value that it's bringing to the table. So something that's kind of manageable and feasible and makes sense for all parties. Potentially, a new partner might want access to new and relevant audiences and communities. And certainly there might be, if you're talking to, a certain type of organization, there might be opportunities for employee engagement or community engagement that partners are looking for. If you're looking at corporate partners, they might be looking for opportunities for employees to get involved. If you're looking at community organizations, they might have access to, groups of, volunteers or individuals in the neighborhood that really want to get involved and get more engaged. So thinking about all the things that a potential partner might want and, how that might fit and match up with what your organization has to offer. But ultimately, I feel like a couple of these are non-negotiables. Oh, I think we're missing a couple of,
对，
a couple of
我
on
也
that
不知道，有时候
slide.
觉得太长了，然后结果就
Oh,
不好意思，
do we have someone that's not on mute? Maybe we could just.
他就是这周末，上周末又跑回来了。
Okay. Let's go to the next slide, Evan. I think it might be missing some of the information that we wanted to have on there. I apologize. Let me, oh, there we go. They're coming on. So these are what I see as sort of the non-negotiables. Ultimately you want to make sure that it's a great fit, but all partnerships are really going to need sort of to have established shared purpose and real shared value for all parties. So you want to make sure there's goals and values alignment in every partnership. You want to make sure that organizations have an approach and a work style that sort of align. It doesn't mean it's necessarily the same work style or approach, but something that's going to work well with your organization. You want to make sure that the organization has some sort of complementary skills, knowledge, or competencies. So you're both sort of, fitting well, like a puzzle. You're helping them and they're helping you. You're filling in each other's gaps. And ultimately, you want to make sure that you're expanding your opportunities to meet your organizational mission and goals. That's ultimately sort of the purpose of partnerships, to be able to really do more or do things better or do things, more, effectively. So we're going to go into our first exercise. The intention here of the way the training is structured is that we really want you to walk away with some of the work and some of the thinking already done. Obviously, you're going to continue on, to continue this work and work with your colleagues on this. But we want you to be able to walk away with, at least some initial thinking that you've done around your organization and partnerships. So we're going to start off this exercise with a reflection activity. And then we're going to have 2 follow-up exercises where we will be breaking out into breakout rooms. So this is a reflection activity. And so we're going to ask each of you to work on your own for about 5 or 6 minutes. I know we may be tempted to sort of check our email or, do a couple of other things, but I really encourage you to try to do this reflection exercise because we're going to be building on it in the next exercise. So we'll be using some of the things that you thought about, reflected on, and jotted down, and we're going to be using that to do the next follow-up step in our breakout rooms. So we're going to put in the chat, just to make it easy for all of you, a link to a Google Doc for those of you that want to go to that link. And then you can download your own version of that document or sort of copy and paste it so you can work on it. And it'll build all of the exercises that will be there in that Google Doc. So Evan, are you able to pop that in the chat? But we can also go to the next slide and I can talk you through it. For those of you that don't have access to go to this link and get into this Google Doc, you can also just grab a sheet of paper and a pen and sort of jot down the answers to these questions. The answers don't have to be fancy. They can be individual, just words or bullets. We don't need, a big sort of, well-written paragraph right now. But just reflect a little bit on some of these questions and think about, how you might answer these questions for your organization. And this is an opportunity to kind of really think about, the things that you feel good about that your organization is doing. What is your organization awesome at? What are the key issues or challenges that your organization is aiming to solve? How are you working to solve it? And what's unique about your organization's approach? What are you guys doing that's really interesting or unique? And what is your organization's proven impact? How do you demonstrate that you're doing a great job? So I'll give you a few minutes to go ahead and answer these questions, either on a sheet of paper and a pencil, or if you can go to the Google Doc, it'll make it a lot easier to complete the follow-up exercises. So go ahead and copy and paste what's in the Google Doc or download your own copy. And we'll give you a few minutes to answer as many of these questions as you can. And then we'll keep moving forward. So we're going to give you, 3 to 5 minutes if you can take the time to do that. And if you have any questions while you're doing it, please pop them in the chat. I'll be monitoring the chat. Going to give you guys a couple more minutes. And don't worry about spending too much time on these. Just kind of, what is kind of the immediate response that comes to your mind? How are people doing? I think we're going to give you another minute. If you want to pop something in the chat, if most people want a couple more minutes, let us know how you're doing. Yeah, you won't be able to edit the form because it's a shared document. So you'll have to download a separate copy for yourself, or you can just kind of scroll and cut and paste it into your own Word document. Okay, we'll give people just another minute. Seems like a couple people are done, a couple people are still working. Okay. Great. So we are going to be building on this and coming back to this at our next activity. But basically, this was an opportunity to really do a quick sort of, asset mapping. What are the things that you're doing? What are the things that your organization is great at? And this is going to be a big part of, sort of embarking on a partnership, is being able to sort of talk about ourselves, talk about our own organization, and being able to talk about what strengths we bring to the table, what assets we bring to the table, and really being able to articulate sort of crisply what we do, how we do it, and again, what we kind of bring to the table. So we want to get you really comfortable about sort of talking about your organization in that way. So let's move to the next slide. So the next step, after you've had an opportunity to really think about your organization's goals and priorities and what you're looking for out of a partnership, and sort of had a chance to map your assets and think about what you bring to the table, and you've also had a chance to start thinking about what some of the gaps are and what you might be looking for in a potential partner. What are some of the things that you're looking for a potential partner to bring? Once you've identified all of those things, we need to actually cultivate partners. We need to actually identify and start approaching potential partners. So that's a key sort of next step. So potential ways to connect and sort of identify partners. Definitely think about leveraging your personal networks and LinkedIn. LinkedIn is, a pretty incredible tool that I think I certainly underuse, but I know people that leverage it really well. And you can really zero in based on sort of what you're interested in, what types of organizations you're interested in, what issue areas you're interested in, and really hone in to see how you're connected to different organizations and different people. And, being proactive about asking for introductions and, attending sort of neighborhood and community meetings, talking to people and saying, we're looking for potential partners in these areas. These are the things we're looking to sort of, work on in our organization. And we need somebody to do X. We need somebody to help us find some physical space. We need access to be able to recruit volunteers. Being really explicit about the things that you're looking for and start talking to people that might be able to, make connections for you. Attending and leveraging industry convenings. Similarly, if you're in a specific issue area or, a specific, sort of geographic area, attending convenings and meetings in those areas to just talk to more people and understand what others are doing and be explicit about sharing what it is that you are looking for. Asking current partners and funders to make introductions. Think about who are already sort of your biggest fans, who already knows the work that you do, knows that you do it well, knows that you're a great partner to work with, and would be able to sort of sing your praises. Potentially, current partners and funders would be able to do that. If somebody is already funding you, already partnering with you, the odds are, they would be happy to sort of speak on your behalf and make introductions to other potential partners or funders. Similarly, leveraging community members and colleagues. Again, people that are sort of, familiar with your work, familiar with how you operate, asking those people if they have people in their networks that they, might be able to introduce you to, organizations they can think of. It's a little bit like, when you're looking for a job, if, you're going to find something if you sort of talk to people and have conversations and do the networking. Finding, the right partnership could be really similar. It's possible that, you have such a clear view of your community, your neighborhood, and, your sort of, field that, you may have zeroed in right in on some very specific partners, which is great. But, if that's not the case, talking to people, having conversations, being really sort of explicit about, what you're looking for and where you are in the process is going to help amplify that message and potentially bring sort of new ideas to the table. And then not being shy about reaching out, setting up calls or in-person meetings when, when it's safe in terms of COVID, but actually having some of those conversations, being out there, talking to people, getting to know other organizations, understanding what capabilities they have. There's really no substitute for actually being out there and sort of, understanding the landscape. So ultimately, if you do get connected to someone, if you do identify sort of, a potential partner and are able to set up a meeting with them or a conversation, really important to sort of make the most of those conversations. Those are important. First conversations are pretty important. Whether you're talking to a funder, whether you're talking to a potential partner, even if you're talking to an organization that you know, but that you've never partnered with and that you're sort of, embarking on something. Preparing for those conversations is really important, and being ready to talk about sort of your organization's goals and assets. And that's part of the reason that we did that exercise we just did. Really starting to sort of articulate for yourself, what are the things I bring to the table and how do I want to talk about that? And we're going to continue working on that today. Thinking about how you can create that shared value. Doing your homework, doing that research and understanding a little bit about the other organization and what some of their strengths might be and what some of their gaps might be and what some of their goals might be. We have on here, ask potential partners to share their goals. So doing the homework that you can to understand some of that, but also being really clear, in a first conversation and asking those questions, asking, what they are looking to get out of potential partners. What are their short and long-term goals? What are they struggling with? Asking some of those questions that'll help you sort of figure out whether this is a potential fit. And listening, really closely listening and responding with sort of other ideas and follow-up questions. Making sure that you're not just going there, sort of with one, goal and just kind of talking at somebody, but really listening to them and understanding sort of what they're looking for as well. This one is really, I think, one of my favorites is presenting high-level ideas to start the conversation. Having been on the corporate side, having been a funder, I know one of the things that I struggled with sometimes was coming to a conversation with a potential partner and having them say, what are you looking for? We can do anything that you're looking for, which in theory is kind of nice, but it's a real struggle. Like I don't know everything about your organization. I don't know, exactly. This is a conversation where we both have an opportunity to explore. It sort of puts a potential partner on the spot to say, what do you need? I can do whatever you need, even if it's a funder. Coming to the table with some high-level ideas for people to react to. It's much easier to sort of react to things and workshop things and evolve them together and just starting from a blank page and sort of saying, what do you need? What can we do to help you? So doing a little bit of that homework so you can come prepared with some initial ideas for people to react to and talk through, and letting them know that these are just initial ideas, that there's flexibility, that this is just a starting point, but having some of those initial ideas and thinking is really helpful. And they might really come from sort of your own goals to be able to say, these are the things we're looking for. These are some ideas that we have, what do you think? So just asking some of those open-ended questions, and then certainly following up, based on what you heard and what you listened to, following up, with some new ideas and some more questions. You can always come around with sort of the second draft of those ideas once you've really listened and you can respond to those. So ultimately, you want to make sure that you leave every meeting or conversation with sort of some clear next steps defined. If it's been a good conversation and you've brainstormed and you have some great ideas, let them know that you'll come back to them with sort of a follow-up, kind of recapping what that is. Find out, if it's still in the very early stages, say, can we stay in touch? Can we meet again in a few weeks or in a couple of months? When you're finished with the big thing that you just told me about, because right now is not a great time for you to explore something new. Think about whatever that next step might be, and it's going to look really different depending on the partner and depending on how that, initial conversation went. And stay in touch, and don't give up. It certainly can take time. Partnerships take time to develop, but, if they're really deep and they're really strong, I mean, the payoff can be really significant. So, stay connected, whatever that means for that particular relationship. If it feels like it's right to follow up with them the following week, do that. If it feels like you just want to send them, a link to a really great article about something that came up during your conversation a few weeks from now, do that. Sort of stay connected if there's not sort of a very specific, tangible next step. And lay the groundwork for sort of engagements. And right now, if there's still limitations because of COVID on what you could potentially do together, it's still a really good time to have these conversations, even if you can't action something. If the thing that you're talking about is just not realistic in a COVID world, it still makes sense to have those conversations now. Have the brainstorms, come up with the great ideas. So when things do open up, you're ready. You're ready to sort of move and activate. So laying that groundwork right now, not just waiting and saying, well, we can't do a big in-person activity now, so let's just wait for a year, to even have the initial conversations. You don't need to do that. You can start sort of the thinking and the work that goes into it now. And patience and polite persistence can certainly pay off. You don't want to be, overly, following up with someone if they've made it clear that this is not a great time for them. But you want to be persistent, if you feel strongly that this is a great potential partner, and you also want to have some patience and understanding. Hopefully you're pursuing a couple of different potential collaborations and, not putting sort of all of your eggs in one basket. So once you do embark on a partnership and there's an agreement that you all want to work together, and there is an opportunity there for sort of shared value and shared work, you want to make sure that you're setting it up for success, that you're building the partnership in such a way and maintaining it in such a way that you're sort of ensuring success. So, agreeing on, yes, we want to work together to do X, is not the end of, sort of the work that goes into creating a partnership. There's a lot of framework and structure that you want to put around it. You don't want to make it overly tedious if it's kind of a small partnership, but you do want to think about it. Putting thought into it is really important. So some of the things that you want to think about. Oh, I think we have to go. Did we skip one? Thank you. So some of the things that we want to think about when creating sort of, the structure for our partnership. You want to make sure there's a clear shared vision that everybody's really clear on. You want to make sure to set clear but realistic expectations. You don't want to sort of be the yes man, and saying yes to sort of everything a partner is looking for because you want it to move forward. If those things aren't realistic for you as an organization, it's way better to communicate those things up front than sort of, under deliver if you've already set expectations that you're going to do something. I think the saying goes over promise, under promise and over deliver. But I think ideally in a partnership, you want to be transparent. You don't want to under promise either. You want to be really accurate about what you think you bring to the table, when you think you can do it, and exactly at what scale you think you can do it. Those are really important conversations to have. Setting those expectations is important. Promise only what you know you can deliver. So that's really critical, because that could set you up for a really successful long-term partnership, or it could really, jeopardize a partnership if early on you are promising things that really aren't realistic. You want to identify point people and set really clear roles. You want to know who is the lead person on all sides for a partnership, who is going to be in these conversations, who are the key decision makers, who are the folks that are going to be tapped with communicating. So think about sort of, a shared decision-making model, but be really clear on who the point people are on all sides. So there's, less likely for things to fall through the cracks. Setting a cadence for ongoing communication. If you're thinking you're going to meet weekly about this partnership and the other organization thinks you're meeting quarterly, that's a disconnect. Be really clear and make sure that both partners are sort of getting their needs met. And, sort of setting those things up from the beginning is really useful. Just knowing that that's the cadence for how you're going to communicate. Defining responsibilities for external communications. We know that social media is, such a critical piece right now of so much of what we do. So you want to make sure that you're really clear on who's handling external communications and make sure that, you're in the loop. Each organization is in the loop. If somebody else is, pitching an article or doing a big social media campaign, nobody wants to be surprised, making sure that everybody's really clear on kind of who's doing what. Remaining flexible and being really clear about your constraints. You want to be flexible, but you also want to be clear if there's some kind of guidelines that you want to set up. We can't do things. We can't get things approved in our organization, on 24 hours notice. That's just not how we're set up. We have sort of, this hierarchy, and this is who needs to sign off on things. And we're not able to sort of sign off on a press release, if you come to us the day before. So being really candid about some of those things up front, while also trying to be flexible, because we know that things come up and we know that sometimes things don't always go as planned. So we want to be a flexible partner, but we also want to be clear about kind of what our limitations and constraints are. And then really committing to sort of shared accountability. What are the risks? What are the benefits? And make sure we're all sharing in those and understanding those and really clear on what those are. So, a few sort of best practices and keys to success. Establish trust and maintain that flexibility. Make sure there's no surprises, setting clear expectations. Be inclusive and embrace equity. Communicate clearly and regularly. Pay attention to details. That's a really, really important one because, as they say, the devil is in the details. You want to make sure that, you're really, really, thinking about that. And cultivate a collaborative spirit, the spirit of we're all in this together. This is a partnership, and we all want this to succeed. Even if there are certain sort of inherent power dynamics that there sometimes are, for example, in a funder relationship, at the very beginning, really making sure that you're setting up sort of the dynamics to feel like we're all in this together and we have a shared goal that we're trying to accomplish, and trying to sort of address some of those dynamics and hierarchies right up front. So we're going to go to exercise 2 now, which is starting to think. So in exercise 1, we really reflected and thought about our own assets, what makes our organization really special, and really thinking about kind of what our organization's value proposition is. Now we want to think a little bit about, that potential partner. Who are you looking at? What are you looking for out of a potential partnership? And these are some critical questions, sort of why them, why you, and why now? You want to make sure a partner understands why they are a good fit for you. That homework that you did, that thinking that you did about how your needs, their needs sort of line up, your needs and assets, their needs and resources line up. So why them? Why would they make a particularly good partner for your organization? Why you? We talked a little bit about the why you already in the first exercise we did, because my organization's fantastic and we're doing this really well and we can deliver on X or Y or Z. The really why you sort of tailored to that partner. And why now? The why now question is really important because everyone has a lot on their plate. I know that each of you right now is taking the time out to be here at this training, but you've got a ton of important work to do back at your desk. So the why now is important for sort of everything that we're going to be taking, that's going to take time, because you need to explain why this is important to do right now. What's the critical need that we're trying to address? Why is this a critical need in the community right now? What are the things that make this urgent? because otherwise it's going to be something that, you know, can get pushed. There's other more urgent things. So really thinking about why this is critical now for your organization, for your community, for the other organization. So thinking about crafting that pitch. So if you're in that Google Doc, or we can put that link back in the chat again, it's page 2 of the Google Doc that we sent around. But we're going to ask you again to reflect for a couple of minutes, and then we're going to put you into breakouts to do the next step. So Evan, if we can just go to the next slide, I'll just talk through what people are doing first. This one. So take a few minutes, again, maybe 3 or 4 minutes to answer this set of questions. So what can your organization offer a potential partner? What are some of those assets that you just reflected on that you can really offer a potential partner? And try to think about, this doesn't have to be a specific partner that you have in mind, but think about sort of the kind of partner that you're looking for. Right now, what's a priority for your organization? Are you looking for a community partner to help extend your reach in the community? Are you looking for, you know, an organizational partner that has access to lots of volunteers because you have, you know, a lot of new programs that you need help executing? Are you looking for somebody with a certain issue expertise, you know, that you're looking to partner with? Are you looking for a funder? Are you looking for a corporate that's going to bring a ton of corporate volunteers? What is it that you're looking for? And sort of start thinking about who that potential partner could be. Again, not a specific name necessarily. If you have one, great. You can put it in there for name, but or you can just under name put corporate partner, or, you know, community organization that has access to volunteers. You know, what is the thing that you're looking for there? So what does your organization offer a potential partner? And then try, you know, just to answer some of these questions. Why them? Why is that type of partner going to sort of help your organization? Why you? Why is your organization going to, what is your organization going to bring to the table there? And why now? So let's take a few minutes to answer that question. Again, this is going to be an easier exercise when you're doing this back at your organization and you've done some of that prior thinking. But right now, we're just trying to get you to start thinking about this, to sort of really practice it. So we're going to give you 3 or 4 minutes to sort of jot down the answers to these questions. Again, you can do it in your own saved out version of the Google Doc that we sent, or you can jot these down. If you have any questions, pop them in the chat, or you can unmute yourself as well and ask us. Okay, I think we're going to give people a couple more seconds, and then we're going to go to part 2 of this activity.
Do you want us to say something now, or?
Not yet. We're going to go into breakout groups shortly, and then we're going to give you the opportunity to sort of share with each other. So now we're going to ask you to, Evan, if you could go to the next slide. I'm going to give you a couple of minutes before we go into breakouts to do, this is page 3 of the Google Doc. So I want you to use your answers in the first exercise on the first page and the second exercise in the second page. If everyone's familiar with kind of Mad Libs, it's like a little bit of a fill in the blank statement. So use sort of the answers that you jotted down about your organization, about your potential partner, to fill in some of the blanks here. So sometimes it's hard to sort of start thinking about how you want to talk about yourself to a potential partner. So you're probably not going to use this exact script, but it's a great starting point. If you just have sort of this sort of initial script, it's something that you can start with and workshop and make better and put better words to, adding stories, adding data points. But this is just a starting point to get everyone comfortable with starting to talk about themselves and their organization in this way. So I'm going to give you a couple minutes to sort of fill in these blanks here. And then Evan is going to put us into breakout rooms and we're going to share with each other, share these statements. And what I would like you to do is give each other, some, what I like to call sort of candid but kind feedback. Ask, when someone shares, ask them, well, I still don't really understand what your organization does, or I need a little more information on what you're looking for out of a partner. Or, that doesn't sound like urgent enough or critical enough. Like I need to hear more about why I should be doing this now. I need more on the why now. So helping each other sort of refine these statements a little bit. So I'm going to give you a couple of minutes to sort of fill this out. And then we're going to go into breakout rooms and share with each other. And when we come back, if there's 1 or 2 people that want to share theirs with a larger group, we would love to hear them. Okay, we're going to start putting you into breakouts, but if while we're doing that, if you want to take an extra minute or 2 to continue filling this out, and if you only have part 1 filled out or only part 2 filled out, that's okay. It's a great start. So just share what you have with the group. It's a good start to starting to talk about yourself in this way and sort of, talk to potential partners. So we're going to put you into breakout groups. We're going to give you about 8 to 10 minutes. So each of you have the opportunity to share, either the whole statement or the part of the statement that you've worked on and give each other a little bit of feedback. Evan and I will be popping into the breakout rooms to sort of check in on how it's going. So don't be shy about sharing. This is a great way to get feedback on yours to make it better. Hi, everyone. I know we got cut off of some good
Can I
conversation.
just say something? There's not enough, there should be more time for the interactions between people so that we can benefit, from, this. So, you have a lot to offer, but we don't have enough time to discuss it.
Absolutely.
And if we have to have limit, and if we have a limited time, then we have to give each person 5 minutes. That's it. And not have someone go on and on, because then it's not fair. Other people, we didn't hear from the other two people in our group either. So that's my feedback for the future.
I
that
appreciate it.
Now
Yeah.
we're going to finish in 20 minutes and, that's just.
Yes. And I
Yeah,
know the breakout.
And excuse me, I'd like to butt in. My breakout session, there was no sound, and it just never happened.
Oh, no.
We didn't connect. Yeah.
That's a shame.
I'm sorry to hear that. Yeah, unfortunately, sometimes with this model, there are technical glitches. So I apologize that you didn't have any sound. That's unfortunate. I hope people were able to use the time to sort of continue working on their pitch. And I totally hear you about breakouts never being long enough. Obviously we're balancing, not having too long a session that would sort of turn people off of participating, and trying to, I think the ultimate goal in every breakout is to sort of get a little bit of a taste and do a little bit of the work. So you come out with sort of those ideas, but we definitely imagine that everybody's going to kind of continue this work in their organizations afterwards also. So the breakouts are hopefully an opportunity to get a taste and a sense and a little bit of feedback. But I appreciate the feedback, and we'll certainly try to have longer breakouts when we do this again. Is there someone that was excited about their statement or part of their statement that would be interested in sharing with the group? Somebody that found this exercise helpful and wants to sort of articulate what they came up with?
I'm Karen from Whitestone, New York, and I will have to say my breakout room was wonderful. There was a young woman there that had experience, some from a church, and we're having revenue issues, but also we do a lot of outreach for the community. And she really brought up a lot of different projects that we could look into for the community that are very much needed. And I thought her ideas were spectacular, and I hope I can get her phone number before we leave so that I can at least talk to her. And it's great. Thank you. I thought it was a good session. Again, more time, but you're right. You have to balance boredom and impatience and people's time. I agree. So thank you.
It's tricky, yes, and we're not done. We have a little more, and we are going to have one more breakout where you guys will get a chance to share some best practices with each other. So hopefully that'll be a good one where you guys have some more time to chat. But that's another great, sort of reason for the breakouts, is just making those connections, like you said, and actually hearing from other people. We don't get to be with each other in person as much these days at conferences. So, having some of these breakouts, even in virtual sessions, can help to make those connections. Is there anyone who wants to either raise their hand or just come off mute that's interested in kind of sharing kind of the pitch that they crafted, with the understanding that this is not signed off on by your organization? We know that it's just kind of a working pitch that you're working on right now. Anyone? Okay, I think maybe everybody needs a bit more time to kind of continue working. But again, this is a template. This is a starting point, and hopefully it's helpful to kind of boil it down to this, and then continue to sort of expand on it and work on it. So I hope that you'll all go back to your organizations with some of this thinking work that you've done, and this initial statement that you've started to create with this kind of fill in the blanks version, and take it back and keep working on it, and getting your colleagues to kind of weigh in on it and say, what exactly do we want to say about what we're looking for? And, what are the things that really make us unique? So I'm hoping that, it'll really create some conversation and some opportunities to kind of continue reflecting as an organization. That's really the goal of it. So let's go to the next slide. Oh, Claudio says they can't unmute themselves to participate. Okay, Evan, I don't know if it's possible to unmute Claudio so we can hear. Sorry about that, Claudio.
It might be an issue with his settings because I can ask him to unmute, but I can't seem to unmute him.
Okay.
If you want to, Claudio, if you have a question or feedback, you're also welcome to put it in the chat.
Okay, while we're waiting for that, we'll keep moving. So the next step in the process, after you've sort of identified the partnership and you're, sort of in the partnership and you've structured it in such a way that helps set it up for success, another key step is reviewing the partnership, making sure that you have points built in to really step back, pause, reflect on it. Because sometimes, when we're embarking on something new, everything is not sort of, perfect when you sort of, create it. There's a trial and error, to sort of every type of new initiative and certainly to partnerships as well. So you want to benefit from that. You want to build in opportunities to kind of reflect on something and review it on a regular basis. Evan, we can go to the next slide. So you want to agree to evaluate the partnership at regular intervals. Is it creating shared value? Is it meeting its goals? And the great part about having meetings, evaluation meetings kind of built in up front is it removes the awkwardness of saying, something's not going well, and now I have to ask for a meeting about this and sort of bring it up. If you already have a monthly meeting on the calendar, you know that monthly meeting has already been set up exactly for that reason, to evaluate, to be able to say what's going well, what's not going well. It sort of builds it right into the relationship, and it ensures that everybody feels comfortable sort of bringing up, things that are working and things that are not working. So, make sure you set those up right at the beginning of a partnership. And you want to also continue to evaluate ongoing community needs to evolve the partnership. Is everything the same as when we started out? Or have things changed? Have things in your neighborhood changed? Have things in your community changed? Are there new needs because of what's going on in the world, that have emerged that we should talk about and figure out how we're going to sort of evolve this partnership to address what those needs are? What are things come up, things change, and you want to make sure that you're having those ongoing conversations to keep that partnership fresh and relevant. You also want to agree on key milestones and a review process. If this is kind of a one-year partnership, if, it's an ongoing partnership to help recruit volunteers, you want to make sure, let's stop and check in with each other at the 6-month point. And let's look at how many volunteers we've actually recruited and, which audiences we're having success with and which we're not. What could we be doing differently? What could we tweak? Don't wait until the end of a partnership, whether it's, with another nonprofit, whether it's with a funder. You don't want to wait until the end and find out, what wasn't working and have, the person say, I'm not interested in continuing this. You want to, create those channels of communication throughout the process. So you're bringing those up and you can actually address those. The final stage in the process is, refining partnerships. How do we continue to always be making something better? We want to use those evaluations, and we don't want to just hear what's going wrong. We want to actually use it to kind of make something better. So you want to be able to adapt and make adjustments as you move forward. You want to keep, creating opportunities to gather feedback from your partner on what worked and what can be improved. And you want to incorporate those learnings as the partnership evolves so you can continue to make it better. And you also get to learn as an organization to make sort of, something you learn from one partnership can help strengthen, other work that you're also doing in the organization. So you want to make sure that you're really reflecting and learning, because otherwise it's a missed opportunity. So for our final exercise in Breakout, we'd like to give you guys an opportunity. We'll probably have realistically, maybe about 8 or 9 minutes in a breakout together. So let's just set that expectation now that maybe each person do kind of a lightning go around. Let's go to the next slide, Evan. So basically what this breakout is, we know that all of you have experience creating and managing partnerships. We want to hear from you kind of what's really working and what hasn't worked. What's your number one lesson learned? in terms of managing partnerships? What's one either do or one don't that you would like to be able to share with your group? And if somebody could sort of, jot down what they're hearing, we'll ask each breakout group when we come back to kind of share their top best practice. So we'll ask everybody to keep it to kind of the length of a tweet. So, just keep it short and sweet to one sentence, but what's kind of, one key lesson from your own experiences? Because I think there's such a wealth of experience, on this, session, that we want to take advantage of that. So we're going to put you into breakouts. We'll do a go around of kind of, something that you've learned based on creating and managing partnerships that you'd like to share with the group. So we'll do that, and we'll have you all come back, and, we'll have you share either, if people want to unmute or in the chat, share kind of, one aha thing, one really great best practice that we haven't talked about yet that came up in your breakout session. Great. So we will send you off in a minute. Should be up on your screen. Hi, everyone. Welcome back
Hi.
to the Breakouts. I hope you all had an opportunity to learn from each other and get some good advice from your very experienced peers here. If there's anybody that wants to pop any great advice that they walked away with in the chat, please do. I'll share from my breakout room. We had being organized is really, really critical, and making sure everyone's on the same page. Somebody also recommended having a formal memorandum of agreement is really helpful also. So not only are you agreeing on everything, but it's also documented and written down. We also said if communications and PR are an important piece of the partnership, making sure there's point people for that and that they're talking to each other from different organizations. Let's see, we have a few comments in the chat. Clear communication up front, definitely. A question about getting a list of participants. I'll defer to Evan on that one, maybe post session. Anyone else have a good tidbit that kind of came out of their breakout room that they want to share?
Hi, I'm Karen. I had Regina and Race and Evan in my room, and it was really interesting. Regina came up with cull the fat, or get rid of people who are on your list of resources that don't really help, right, Regina? And reassessment, and I came up with reassessment and being positive. If you're working on the project, we can do it. And I also came up with, and Regina said, share the wealth, meaning if you've got contacts that can help others, it's not wrong to share that. And I always say, explain to how you came where you made this choice or this decision, meaning, I think we should do this is not enough. I think you have to sometimes explain your rationale.
Great, thank you.
And Race is in Meshulah Parkway, and she's giving food programs and stuff, and she was very helpful on the call too. And Evan was too, even though he just was overseeing. Okay, thank you.
Terrific, terrific. Well, just to wrap up, it was great to be with everyone today. The one thing I'd love to encourage you to do, here's a recap of sort of the model. But the one thing I'd love to encourage everybody to do is think about making a commitment sometime in the next, few weeks. What's something that you would like to do that you sort of took away from this session? And, what would you like to commit to doing? Sort of doing an asset mapping. We can go to the next slide, Evan. Do we want to do asset mapping? Do we want to have a conversation with our colleagues about what sort of the opportunities and gaps are? Do we want to think about sort of, the landscape of our community and our neighborhood and who might make a great partner? So think about what that might be as we're wrapping up and leaving. If you want to share in the chat what your action step is going to be sometime in the next 30 days, that would be great. But at the very least, I hope all of you take your sort of fill in the blank statement and continue to workshop that and refine that, because it can be a really good starting point to just understanding yourself, what your organization is looking for out of a partnership. Even if you don't actually use it to talk to someone, it's a great reflection to kind of really clarify that for your own organization. So thank you all so much. It was really great to be with all of you. And I wish you the best of luck in partnerships that you're embarking on over the course of this year. Thanks, everyone.